Okay, thank you. The session is now recording. Good morning again to you, dear colleagues. My name is Lawrence, and I am delighted to be your moderator for today's workshops. Before I begin, I would like to thank all the attendees for taking the time to join us, and most importantly, I would like to thank our presenter, Dr. Tony Shabangu, for his effort in preparing to giving this presentation. Can I just get a thumbs up from everybody if they can hear me, just to confirm before I continue? Just a thumbs up from everyone to confirm that you can all hear me. All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, before introducing Dr. Tony to you, I would like to go over a few housekeeping rules. If you do have any question during the presentation, please raise your hand. And if you'd like to speak or type your question in the chat box. And if you do wish to speak, please raise your hand, your virtual hand, and I will indicate to the presenter to address your question. And as I've noted before the session began, that it will be recorded and the presentation slides will be requested from the presenter. And both of these will be uploaded on our model communities. A feedback survey will be sent during the chat session. So as the session will be going on, I will send a feedback survey. So I would like to please request all the participants to fill this in, because this will help us in planning of our workshops and how we can improve in the future, as well as to provide some kind words to our facilitator for the hard work. Also, this will be used for our RCD reporting. By filling in this survey, this ensures that you receive a certificate of attendance through our system, through our RCD management system that has launched. If you did miss out on our launch that was last week on Friday, please do visit please do visit the website, the rcdms.uj.ac.za, or you can log into ULink and navigate the services tab, click on RCDMS, log in with your UJ credentials to access all the workshops, seminars, and writing consultant and more. And if you'd like to know more about the RCD system, management system, please, you can just kindly email us at rcdinquiries@uj.ac.za for immediate support. So before I begin again, I would like to read over our facilitator's bio, Dr. Tony. Dr. Tony Shabangu is a philosophy lecturer at the University of Johannesburg, where his main areas of research specialization are African ethics, primarily Ubuntu. Prior to that, he was a coordinator at the Postgraduate School Research Capacity Development Unit, where his role was to facilitate the postgraduate diploma, honors, and master's coursework students' workshops, mini courses, short learning programs, events, and collaboration. Additionally, Dr. Tony has completed a postdoctoral research fellow with the Center for Leadership Ethics based in Fort Hare, where he worked on punishment ethics as a postdoctoral fellow. As a student, Tony joined the University of Johannesburg in 2008 and recently received his PhD at the Department of Philosophy in 2022. Prior to graduating in 2022, Tony was on-site research writing consultant at the UJ Research Capacity Development Unit located at the postgraduate school. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to our facilitator for today's workshop, goal setting, time management, and maintaining motivation, Dr. Tony. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction and reading of my bio. Welcome to everyone once again to this workshop. As I had mentioned, it's obviously part of time management to understand when to adjust your time and adopt new strategies when need be. So I just want to ask, can you see my slides? I want to put it in presentation mode.
Yes, I can see your slides. Can everybody just confirm with a thumbs up? Okay, perfect. I think they can all see your slides.
Perfect. Okay, so as the slide heading says, we will be focusing on goal setting and time management. I see there's a hand up already. I don't know if that is because of the slides. Okay, hand down. Okay, so the contents of today's workshop will generally cover time management, what is time management, and then take you through some steps on understanding how we manage our time, like being able to self-diagnose yourself as someone who has poor time management, being able to account for what happens to your time during the day. And then I will also distinguish between procrastination and what is known as laziness, because there seems to be a conflation of the two. And then we will discuss effective strategies that will help you then overcome time management issues, and also to keep you writing, to keep you in a space of working, writing, doing research. There's always something to do. There's never a point at which you are done. Like, as an academic doing postgraduate studies, the word done is very rare to hear, unless someone is talking about I'm graduating this week. Then sure, you can say you're done at that phase. But anywhere between the beginning of your journey and the graduation, those words become such a rarity. They become such a piece of gold that we all never attain, really. And this is why time management becomes such an important aspect of your professional and academic journey. Okay, so one thing I want to also cover is that as a postgraduate student, you have to be aware of a number of things, which I will touch on just shortly before we move on. You need to know what exactly is required of you as a postgraduate student at the level at which you are. And the first thing that we encounter, especially in masters, especially in PhD, at the PhD level, is that we need to know what a proposal is. We need to know how to choose a supervisor. We need to know what exactly the journey entails for you from the very beginning to the end. And this also means that you need to understand how much time is allocated for your studies and how much time is allocated for you to rest, and how you negotiate that space as someone who is responsible 100% for their own time. It's not like when you're doing undergrad or when you're doing maybe coursework, where you will have a lot of guidance and deadlines and mini deadlines that lead to the main deadline. Generally, a lot of us find ourselves in a space where we have zero guidance and we have absolutely no one to pass the responsibility to if we don't do the things that we need to do. So the first thing that we need to be aware of is UJ has an academic calendar for every year. Very easy to find this. Simply just search UJ 2025 calendar. It will show you this academic calendar, which I have before you. And as you can see, this calendar details some very important dates, such as when the university year starts, when the semesters start and the semesters break, when certain study periods are, and even research periods, because you need to know when you will get any time. You need to know when you will have no time to do any work. And this is important also for a lot of us are doing work, as in we are employed, we have other obligations and responsibilities. And so the year usually passes by very quickly without us knowing when exactly we need to be ready to submit certain things, or when we get to take a break to focus on the research, etc. So get yourself familiar with the academic calendar for 2025. It will be your guide, especially when you start feeling overwhelmed and tired. This is going to be very helpful because you will know when you can get a break, and you will know when you can focus on just research, or you will know when you will be without students, let's say during the exam period or the study period of your journey. It's very common to find that we work while we doing um, like postgraduate studies. It's very common. So time management becomes crucial to actual success in our work and our professional careers. So the postgraduate life cycle at UJ basically has four major phases. We have what is called the foundational phase, the things such as getting you registered, getting you started, choosing a supervisor, etc. Then we have a gaining momentum phase where you now have a proposal, and this proposal now is guiding your work, guiding what you need to do going forward. And then you have the final phase where you've done the writing now and you're submitting and you're going through assessment, your NAC processes, your comments after the assessors have given feedback, your Viva, which is a verbal examination process that takes place. Those usually take place in the final phase. And then we have what is called beyond graduation, where you've now achieved and attained your degree and you're looking at what comes next. All of these then play a role in your development, and they all are milestones that are significant for your supervisors, but more so yourself. And this is how these things pretty much look in the individual states. So the foundational phase will have things such as I said, admission registration. This is the point at which you need to be looking for funding and finance. You should be referring to the postgraduate school for certain funding. Sometimes you need to go to the finance department. Sometimes you'll have to go to another support unit that is perhaps maybe providing funding or some sort of financial support for students. You will have to choose a supervisor. So if you are in the position of starting a new degree, such as an MA or PhD, choosing a supervisor is the next step that needs to take place if it hasn't already happened. At this point, a lot of you should have a supervisor, but I'm not saying that there aren't exceptions where people are still looking for a supervisor or they are still approaching supervisors, getting a feel of their expertise and how the relationship would work between them and the potential supervisor. Getting your resources and support, your books, your guides, your instruments, your support research space, early proposal phase, meaning you need to know what a research proposal template looks like. And I would have easily just put up a template here so that you know and you can plan ahead. However, these templates have now been kind of made to fit their specific domain. So at the philosophy department, we use a humanities template, but we also emphasize on certain subheadings that other departments won't emphasize on. And we de-emphasize on some that aren't so important for us. So for instance, sorry about the noise in the background if you can hear it, but for instance, with the philosophy department, we will de-emphasize certain things around the methodology because our methodology is very simple, but we will put a heavier emphasis on a literature review because we want to see that kind of understanding of the literature, but not only just that, but you need to be able to see the big picture of where the debates are, who's saying what and where. So it's important to understand these things. Have a look at the proposal template that belongs to your department. Maybe have a chat with the postgraduate coordinator in your department and ask about the template. Ask if they can send you a template that you then can use to start planning ahead for your proposal. And then you get approval for that research topic. This approval usually happens at the faculty higher degrees committee level. And then you also get ethical clearance once the proposal has been approved. Choosing a supervisor, of course, is something that we have to do. It's very rare to have someone doing research at the postgraduate level without direct supervision. It's really the university's obligation to actually give you that level of support in preparation for the research, for the proposal, for ethics approval. This is because the supervisor will know what comes next. So when you do have a supervisor, they will advise you, okay, after this point, we need to sign a supervisor student contract, for the research. After we sign that contract, we need to then set up weekly meeting schedules. Once we have the schedule, we need to look at potentially optimizing your writing by having maybe you attend workshops, etc. The supervisor will have this knowledge and information. They will be able to guide you. And so it is important to be able to choose a supervisor. And in other cases, you will also be appointed a co-supervisor who will also provide additional support because they will have their own expertise to add to that. But they will also be able to step in when your supervisor, your main supervisor, is on sabbatical or is ill or there's something that's preventing them from doing their work. Sorry, just let me know, is the sound in the background very bad? Are we good?
No, it's not that bad. I think everybody can hear you perfectly.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we can all hear
So
you
with the
perfectly.
supervision,
Thanks.
this is not to say that you must go out looking for these kinds of relationships, but with supervision, you must understand that there's a variety of relationships that can occur, and you need to look at yourself first and look at what kind of support you will need. Don't look at the supervisor and say, wow, that's a cool looking human being. I could probably be friends with this person if we weren't doing work. If that's the kind of approach that you are taking, finding a supervisor, don't be surprised when the supervision becomes very informal, becomes very friendly, becomes very less focused on the things you need, but focused on that element of, relationality. But instead, what you need to do is look at yourself and understand where you are weak. For instance, I know myself as someone who's very creative, someone who's passionate about an idea once I find an idea that speaks to me. But I'm not the strongest when it comes to daily reports and daily kind of feedback, regular micromanaging of the research. I know that I need support on that front. So I need someone who's going to give me strict deadlines, someone who's going to be checking in with me when I'm not doing the work, someone who's going to be keeping me accountable for my own work. So what I do is then take a slide like this and look at what I need. Do I need strong management skills? Do I need someone who makes extra time? Do I need strong interpersonal relations? Maybe not so much. Do I need to ensure there's structure in place with my research? Yes. So then I will look for someone who has a contractual style of supervision if I'm given the choice. Not everyone is given the choice to pick their own supervisor, but when you are, think about these things on top of the research. Yes, these are going to be experts in the field that you find yourself in, but look at intangibles also. Will the relationship work when I'm someone who is not so good with time and then my supervisor equally isn't good with time? No, you need to find a good balance between the skills you have and what your supervisor can offer you. Good. And so there are a variety of roles that the supervisor plays, and there are roles that you'd play in this relationship so as to not conflate who needs to do what at what time. The supervisor will provide support and structure to you. They will guide you through the research. It will assist in meeting timelines and deadlines. I emphasize the word assist. They are not responsible for those. They will remind you, they will assist you, they will guide you, but they won't be held responsible if you do not meet that deadline. They are there to ensure that project funding and infrastructure are available. So when you need some sort of assistance, they should know who to approach and how to approach them. They should provide you with references when you need to get a job to maybe support your academic career. They should know who to talk to when you need to get access to certain things. They will help you develop your research skills, and they are responsible for giving you constructive feedback and promoting your development and assisting with admin. So the admin work that is done is generally taken up by the supervisor. And then the co-supervisor will essentially hold a similar role to the supervisor, with the exception that they may just be a little more hands-on. 1 second. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. They will be more hands-on at times because they may have a little more time to speak to you, to kind of engage with you than the main supervisor, who has to then guide the research and do those main things. They will be able to provide feedback on the project, and they will also assist with admin. You then, as a student, need to commit to your research. You need to develop your own research, adhere to timelines and deadlines, provide results for feedback, meaning when you receive feedback, you need to actively show that you've made changes, you've addressed the comments and concerns, and that you actually adopting what they are suggesting. And you need to develop your own research skills and your research output. So you can't hold the supervisor responsible for a missed deadline. Even if you are saying, I'm waiting on feedback from them, they can be held for not giving you feedback in time, but they can never be held for you missing your submission deadline. So it's key that you understand that. And a research proposal, just to say a little on this, it's a structured formal document that explains what you plan to research. It's a concept document that explains your ideas and where they fit amongst others in the field. The proposal is a detailed description that contains the aims, relevance, context, approach, and feasibility of the project. That last part, I think, is quite important. We, as students and academics in general, sometimes are lured into the idea that our research is meant to change the way we fundamentally see the world. And I'm not disputing that. We should aspire towards this, but we shouldn't also set ourselves up for failure by doing projects that sit well and above reasonable means, especially given the amount of width you're given in a master's and a PhD. You need to find a project that is doable. I emphasize this because as a writing consultant, a lot of the time, people would come to me not with problems in terms of the writing, but with problems on how to make this project doable or manageable. And those two things are all a matter of focus. Make sure that your research has a focus. Make sure that there's a specific thing you're addressing and you're not trying to address the entire body of knowledge. The way you address the body of knowledge is like the way you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. You can't consume the entire body of knowledge in one PhD, let alone address it in one PhD. So look at one aspect that you want to address. For instance, if we are talking about, let's just talk about justice in South Africa and looking at how democracy has failed to provide justice to certain people from the past. That is a project that is general. But if I look at TRC victims, and justice in light of Ubuntu. I've kind of honed in to the example I will be unpacking and the theoretical formula I will be using to unpack this. So make sure that your research question also has a focus, and make sure that your entire project is addressing a specific issue and not a general one. Okay. And the proposal, this again may change according to your faculty, but when you're doing masters full time, you get up to 12 months to finish that proposal, but a maximum time of 24 months for full-time study. If you're doing part-time studies, then you only get 12 months for the master's and then 36 months for the master's maximum time. Doctoral studies, as you can see, 24 months and 48 months, 24 months and 60 months. It's literally an additional year for part-time study. So know your own status, as in know if you are doing full-time, inquire with your HOD how much time you actually have for these proposals and actually getting it done and submitted. And then how much time should you wait when the faculty has your proposal? How much time are you expected to wait? Ask about these things. Make sure you know. Okay, any questions thus far? Because I'm going to get into now specifically the time management. Are we happy? Okay.
Yeah, I don't
I'll
see
take
any
silence as
questions.
happiness.
Yeah,
No
there's no
questions thus far.
questions in the chat box. There's no hand
Okay.
raised. I think we can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So the question I have for you is, are you constantly finding yourself behind at work or school? Do you usually find yourself looking back at an incomplete to-do list after a day's work? Well, if this is the case, it is most likely that you're struggling with time management. And struggling with time management can be detrimental to your professional life and even your own psychological health. Those that seem to struggle with time management generally feel less in control of their lives, their work, and their studies. They feel as if these things have more, they feel like they are being swept away by the waves of things that are happening in their lives, and have very little control to stop these waves from just sweeping them whenever. Time management itself depends on one's ability to reflect on their use of time. Those who reflect on how they use their time get to understand their own mental clock and when they need to actively work on being productive or ride off of a certain kind of flow state, enjoying some time relaxing or enjoying some time doing something in between. In order to manage your time more effectively, it is important to analyze where you are wasting your time. To do this, we can utilize the RAC. I'm in a meeting, sorry. We can utilize the RAC method: record, analyze, and change. So this means you need to be able to record your use of time, you need to be able to analyze it, and you need to be able to make changes when necessary with the use of time. So when you wake up, you need to make a mental note. This is now in light of recording where your time is being used. We're going to look at analyzing and making changes after. When you wake up, you need to make a mental note of the time that you get up. This means that if you are someone who wakes up at 5, even if you wake up and sit in bed, you must make a note that I'm up from 5 a.m. in the morning. And when you are up physically, you then make a physical note of that time from the moment you get up to the moment that you end your day. So you will then write in some sort of piece of paper or maybe a diary that I wake up at 5 and then I sit in my bed for like 15, 20 minutes. I'm on my phone. And then at 5:30, I go and shower. The shower takes me 15 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour, whatever. And then I'm on the road for another hour. I get to campus, and the first thing I do is I go to the student center, I get some coffee, and that takes me about another 30, 45. I don't know how much time it is. And then I only get to work, and the time is like 10 a.m. This is important that you do it this way. Use a day planner and plot the details of your day. And as you go about your tasks, make a note of everything you do as the day progresses until bedtime. How long does it take you to get ready for work or school? Your productive work hours, and also your downtime, meaning things like social media, things like spending time on emails, etc. Um, these things are important to make note of because when you think of your day, even when you are in bed in the morning and your phone, that time, that time that you have there is then some time that leaks out of your day. And if you were to think about it, there are other ways of maybe using that time more efficiently. Once you've checked out the record of your time, so if your days from 5 a.m. till let's say 10 p.m. at night, you need to be able to understand where are you most productive. And you need to be also able to identify when are you most productive. So when I say where, some people work better at home, some people work better at school, some people work better in the library, some people work better in the kitchen. Where are you most productive is a very important question for yourself. This has become more and more of a serious question ever since COVID, actually, where we all were kind of stuck at home and we needed to really rethink the places in which we decided to work in, the places in which we were productive in. And thus, a lot of us had to kind of get rid of the bedroom as a place of work because the bedroom is the very same place where you sleep and relax and do things which are downtime activities. So psychologically, your mind can tell you that if you are in this space, you should be relaxing, you should be resting and enjoying your time. But as you can see, your actual time usage requires you to be productive. So the bedroom then becomes an issue when it comes to working. So important, where are you most productive and when are you most productive? Some people are more productive in the mornings. I know myself as a morning person also. I like to get more of my tougher tasks done in the morning and then the easier ones in the later parts of the day. So for instance, I like to do my reading in the morning. I like to engage with marking and research and things like that in the morning. And at night, I will do things like respond to emails. Maybe I will edit certain pages. I will add page numbers and do my table of contents. Those lesser demanding tasks I leave for a time which I have less energy, where I'm less productive, where I will require less energy to do them. So I leave those for those times. So it's important that you know yourself and your productive hours versus your unproductive hours. And then once you understand that, you have to know some sort of approaches to managing your time. Excuse me. And this means what are you doing when you know you are spending too much time on your phone? Are you then taking that time and using it differently? Or are you still on your phone, just maybe trying to go onto different websites or read material on your phone? Or what approaches are you taking? Are you alternating the thing that's wasting your time, or are you replacing it, or are you finding a way to negotiate your time to make space for that thing? There is definitely always a response to the way in which our time is getting wasted. And then you need to also identify your own routines. When you have certain routines, like myself, I get up, get here, first thing, coffee. Second thing, open. I hate to open my emails, but I check my emails and I don't respond in the morning. I just check in case there's something important that requires my attention immediately. And then once I've checked that, I get one of my sticky notes and then I do what is called, I give myself a list, a to-do list, and I get to it. I get straight to it. Stick the sticky note on my laptop so whenever I'm looking down at the things, or even if I'm typing, I can see the things that I need to do. I need to be able to also weigh my priorities and obligations against the time I have available to fulfill them. You don't want to overcommit. Some of us are guilty of overcommitting, and that's what actually makes us poor at time management, not the fact that we are lazy and can't do the things that we commit to, but there's just not enough hours in a day. It is just not enough time for you to commit to some of the things and fulfill them while also meeting your own obligations and your own priorities. Then, an important one. What are your motivators and what are your stressors? This is important because understanding your motivation means understanding the key factors that influence productivity for you. So, for instance, there are two major streams of motivators and stressors that are quite effectively spoken about in psychology. And this is what they've based some of the kind of literature on people being introverts and not extroverts. But I like to call it stressors and motivators. So, for instance, some people are motivated by being with other people. So you'll find motivation in the fact that you are with friends and you are in social spaces, you are with family, or you're at the mall, or whatever it is. Maybe you find inspiration when you are in social spaces. And maybe you are stressed by social spaces, by being in public spaces, by having friends over all the time and all of that. You need to know what motivates you and what stresses you, because in the need of motivation, you know exactly what to do. So for me, I know I have a strange battery which gets charged by social activities, social time with other people, but also requires a consolidation period of just now I'm by myself before I go into work. I can't just go from hanging out with people on Saturday and then work on Monday. Sunday is my time to consolidate a lot of what has happened and use that to kind of, plan my week ahead. Some people get stressed by being alone. Some people are actually motivated by being alone. It's a matter of understanding what you need in that time and that space. And then once you understand these things, how do you then arrange your days, minutes, and hours? And very importantly, how often do you rest? This is academics like to take lightly of rest. Academics like to praise people who stay up all night and write and read and do all of these things as if that is how we are supposed to be functioning. I would like to correct them right now and say no human being can work optimally without sufficient rest. I repeat, no human being can work optimally without sufficient rest. And what counts as sufficient rest, though, is what may be questionable because some people need 5 hours, some people need 6 hours, some people need seven, and some people need eight and more. It is again a matter of understanding your own circadian rhythms, your own clocks, your own internal clocks, and being able to be consistent. With rest, consistency is key, primarily when you sleep. If that is consistent, the time at which you wake up will also become consistent. If you sleep at haphazardous times, then the time at which you wake up will likely end up being haphazardous. It just kind of works in that fashion. So find a consistent time in which you definitely jump into bed at, even if you don't sleep immediately, but tell yourself that at 10 p.m. I need to be in bed. Whether I sleep at 10 p.m. or not is a different ball game altogether. But I must be in bed at 10 so as to wake up at 5 every day. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Now, procrastination, which is a bit of a funny topic because this is a word that gets used so often in academia. Um, but again, I emphasize that procrastination is very different to what we call laziness. Procrastination means putting off a task one should be doing, and procrastination means delaying or postponing something that needs to be done, usually because it's unpleasant or dull or something that you do not really want to get too caught up into. By procrastinating, you can damage your performance, harm your reputation, and cause yourself unnecessary anxiety. And procrastination is often confused with laziness, but they are very different. In this case, procrastination is an active process where you choose to do something else instead of the task that you have. And laziness suggests an apathy, an inactivity, an unwillingness to do it. You can see how laziness is flat out negative activity, no activity, net zero activity. Whereas procrastination is saying there is activity, just misdirected activity. Cool. So don't let people call you lazy when you know you're a procrastinator. Correct them. Say, no, I know I'm not lazy. I get things done. It's just that this particular task requires me to do something to get into it. I'm currently not into it right now. Now, tips and effective strategies to deal with this situation of procrastination. The first thing is you need to weigh the importance of tasks. I will show you a matrix that will be very helpful in organizing the importance of tasks just now. So I won't say much on that, but you need to also be able to start small. So break larger tasks into smaller chunks and pick one that you can do now so that you're underway almost without realizing it. A very cool thing that you guys should Google is what is called a Pomodoro, which is an Italian word for short intervals. I think that's what it means. And this Pomodoro technique is a technique that is used to kind of slowly ease your way into work without feeling the pressure of having to jump into the deep end from the get-go. And how it works is, for instance, you can start with, let's say, in an hour, you break up your hour into two different segments of work and rest, where the first segment will be the rest, or actually the work segment, and the second segment will then allow for rest. So, for instance, the Pomodoro technique is a time management method that breaks down work into focused 25-minute intervals separated by short breaks, aiming to improve focus and productivity. The way you do it is you choose a task that you want to focus on, set a timer for like 25 minutes, work on that task for an entire 25 minutes without distractions. After the timer rings, take a 5-minute break, repeat the step for a total 4 Pomodoros. After 4, you take a longer break, mark off each Pomodoro as you go. The point is that after 4 5-minute breaks, which count as 25 minutes, you then take a 30-minute break also. So you get an hour after working for an hour. Um, but essentially, you're not jumping into doing a whole hour's work immediately. You're almost doing it in smaller chunks until the work is really done. And the benefits of this is the structured intervals help maintain focus and reduce distractions. Regular breaks prevent burnout, and it helps also with unmanageable sizes of work. So consider doing this whenever you find that it's hard to start. I want to get started. Also, then you have to be able to make a plan, set dates and times, especially around your research. You need to be able to use the UJ calendar to plan periods of intense research versus periods of less intense research and versus periods in which you will be like all over the place. Also, segue into laborious work. When writing academically, you can always start by doing something creative, like creatively shorthand, or even draw. And one of the writing retreats that I went to, the suggestion was that we think about the thing that is distracting us. So for instance, if I'm someone who likes playing games, like online games or whatever, I have to draw a picture of that thing, but as a gremlin. So I will draw like either a cell phone with horns, or I will draw a PlayStation controller that is spiky. I don't know. You just do something that is artistic and creative before getting into the work. So usually after drawing that thing and spending like some time being serious and like, yeah, I'm gonna draw this properly and trace then when the work comes in, it feels like it's less strenuous sometimes. It's less mental work because you've done a little something that was quite cognitively taxing. Um, Make sure you finish things. When you spot a task that's nearly done, put in extra effort to get it done, get it over the line. Don't be tempted to leave lots of jobs almost finished. Enjoy the satisfaction of ticking them all off your list. Deal with distractions. What can you change about your environment to improve your focus, and what needs to be put out of reach until the task is done? Be kind to yourself. No one ever gets to the end of their to-do list. Do your best to meet your deadlines and celebrate your successes. But be realistic. You always have more to do, even if the hours of the day are not enough. Cool. So when it comes to planning and setting your goals, in order to use your time effectively, it's necessary for you to plan. By knowing what you have on a given week, you can plan around your commitments and make space for homework and study. The first step is to know what you have on for the year, academic calendar. This will help you plan what pieces of work to concentrate on at different periods of the year. If you're doing a practical subject such as music, you will need to prioritize your practice before the practical exam, which takes place before the written exam. The final step is planning out your individual week. Plan your week by marking off the times when you are busy. This is a vital step to using your available time as effectively as possible. Use a weekly timetable worksheet for this and mark off your hours if you are busy during this week. Now, as I said, I will give you a breakdown on how to distinguish between urgent and important tasks. Yeah, the best way is to just show you the Eisenhower matrix, because explaining it here may not be clear enough. But we need to be able to break down the things that we need to do in a day, in a week, in a month, in a term, in a semester, in a year, into either urgent, not urgent, important, or not important. As you can see on the top left, we have urgent and important tasks, and these are tasks that you do. These are tasks with deadlines and immediate consequences. Something like your research, like an assignment, um, like a leaking tap at your house, you know? It's important and it's urgent. The leak may flood your house if you don't do anything about it. And there is a deadline. If the leak goes after, like, on for like a couple of days, you may be flooded. So ensure that tasks that are important and urgent, both important and urgent, you do them with immediate effect. Tasks that are important and not urgent. Now, the top right, you schedule these. So these are tasks with unclear deadlines that contribute to long-term success. So something such as your table of contents, your reference list, your uh, your various tasks that you do at work also, something such as, if there's some sort of security training that you need to do, you need to schedule these tasks, even though they may not have a clear deadline, as in if you don't do the training today, you won't lose your job, but you will be required to do it eventually. So you make some sort of plan and schedule that. And then on our bottom left, we have not important but urgent tasks. These are tasks that we delegate, tasks that must get done but don't require your specific set of skills. So something such as the editing in your research. You can delegate this by finding a copy editor and paying them to do your copy editing. It's important and it must get done, but it doesn't require your specific skill set. It requires someone else who is an expert. Something such as research methodology. You can delegate that too if you go to StatCon and ask for them to help you develop your research methodology. You may not be completely taking it off your to-do list, but it's a form of delegation. And then the last category is tasks that are not important and not urgent. These are then distractions and unnecessary tasks. Uh, yeah, there's many that can be mentioned, but the very first one that comes to mind is doom scrolling. When you're just scrolling through your phone for who knows what. And we get trapped by these very easily now that one video is linked to a bunch of videos, is linked to, a whole rabbit hole of stuff that you can constantly be consuming and losing time in. These we just need to delete. There's no place for them, there's no space for them, there's no time for them. Just a repetition of these quadrants. Quadrant one, do quadrant, is a do quadrant, and this is where you'll place any tasks that are both urgent and important. When you see a task on your to-do list that must be done now, has clear consequences, and affects your long-term goals, place it in this quadrant. There should be no question about which task falls into this quadrant because these are the tasks that are at the front of your mind and are likely stressing you out the most. If you are unclear as to where to put certain tasks for the very first one, anything that is at the front of your mind right now, research, finding a supervisor, put that on the quadrant one do list. Quadrant two, the schedule list. Quadrant two is the schedule quadrant, and this is where you will place any tasks that are not urgent but are still important. Because these tasks affect your long-term goals but don't need to be done right away. You can schedule these tasks for later. You'll tackle these tasks right after you tackle the tasks in quadrant one. You can use various time management tips to help you accomplish the tasks in this quadrant. Some helpful strategies include the Pareto principle or the Pomodoro method. Quadrant three, when you delegate, is the delegate quadrant, and this is where you'll place any tasks that are urgent but not important. These tasks must be completed now, but they don't affect your long-term goals. Because you don't have a personal attachment to these tasks and they likely don't require your specific skill set to complete, you can delegate these tasks to other members of your team. Delegating tasks is one of the most efficient ways to manage your workload and give your team the opportunity to expand their skill set. And then finally, once you've done and gone through your to-do list and added tasks to the first three quadrants, you'll notice that a handful of tasks are left over. The tasks left over are the tasks that weren't urgent or important. These unimportant, non-urgent distractions are simply getting in the way of you accomplishing your goals. Place these remaining items on your to-do list in the fourth quadrant, which is the delete quadrant. Now, once you have a nice setup with the getting into understanding your own time management, once you've recorded it, once you've analyzed it, and once you've started to do some things to address it, you need to then get into a rhythm. You can't just try address time management in one day and then go back to your ways the following day. You need consistency. Unfortunately, it requires consistency. So when you wake up, ensure that you wake up at the same time by sleeping at the same time. Ensure that you're consistent in terms of when you go to bed to give your body the same consistent amount of hours every day, to charge you up enough to get through the day, and actually check off things in your to-do list. When it comes to breakfast, this may be controversial, but I'll take that. Have lighter breakfast meals. Heavy meals lead to lethargic starts to a day. If you're gonna start your day by chips, and heavy meals with a lot of protein, even like steak for breakfast, or even maybe something without protein and a lot of carbs, like pap. Those things are healthy. I'm not saying they are unhealthy, but what they do is they weigh you down if you have a lot of it. So, especially the chips and the pap, and I'm saying this because this is what is readily available at our student center. Be wary of what you consume in the morning. It generally has consequences for the amount of energy you will have for the rest of the day. A good start to the day is coffee, and a light meal in a day is like an egg and toast, egg and bread. That may be very light, but I mean, you can have 2 eggs, 4 slices, or whatever. It's just not too heavy on the carbs and not too heavy on the protein. You get a good balance of protein from the eggs, some carbs from the bread, and some energy, direct energy from the coffee. Um, and that should keep you going till about, tea time, maybe even lunch sometimes. If you're a morning person, as I mentioned, start with the hard labor first and do things like emails last. Emails waste the most amount of time. Save them for last. I know it seems like an attack on emails, but generally you open one email, it leads you to the next, just like doom scrolling. And next thing you're doing tasks from an email that is not that significant when there's something that requires your immediate attention. And when you're not writing, read. When you're not reading, edit. When you're done editing, write. There's always a task to do, even when the mood is off. Try do the tasks which are easier when your mood sucks. Just do the editing when your mood is off, so that you're not writing out of a point of anger or not writing out of a point of contempt. And then when you know how to manage your time effectively, there are benefits to this. Of course, there are benefits to this. We're not just doing this as lip service, but with greater time management, you have greater productivity and efficiency. You will have less stress, trust me, because you will have things checked off your list, but also you'll be someone who's reliable and you'll have a better professional reputation. This then increases your chance of advancement, of getting some sort of raise, bonuses, promotions, all come from this professional reputation that you build by managing your time better. And this allows you more opportunities to achieve your life and career goals. Overall, you start feeling more in control and with the confidence to choose how best your time is used. And by feeling happier, more relaxed, and better able to think, you're in a great place to help others reach their targets too. Last thing I'm going to discuss is imposter syndrome. This is something that sometimes goes hand in hand with why we end up procrastinating. Imposter syndrome, also known as the imposter phenomenon or imposterism, is a psychological occurrence in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. I can tell you with my chest that I have worked at the University of Johannesburg as a tutor, as a writing consultant, and as a bunch of things. But when I actually got appointed as a lecturer recently, I suffered from imposter syndrome. And if it weren't for mentorship and people around me supporting me, it really would have made me a poor academic, a poor colleague, uh, one that lacks confidence in their skills, talents, and abilities. So if you're currently feeling that, please know that it's a common feeling and a lot of people experience it, but you don't need to feel like that. Your department, your faculty, your supervisor would have not accepted your application if you didn't fit the criteria of student they were looking for. So you are definitely not there by luck. You're not there by coincidence, but by sheer excellence of what you've done before getting there. And that should give you confidence that there are many people that apply for the positions that we take up, whether it is as students or the employment that we eventually get. Many, many people who do not receive any sort of chance because they have not got what the department, the faculty, the university is looking for. And you do. You have been exceptional in such a way that in 1,000 or thousands of applications, yours has stood out. So you have no reason to feel like you don't belong. Imposter syndrome causes us to panic under normal circumstances and undervalue our own input amongst our colleagues, stifling our development. But you must trust that UJ is one of the best institutions in the country with a very fine margin for postgraduate entry. And you have made it to the top of the mountain because you have earned it and you deserve it, not by chance, not by coincidence, but by merit. And that's it. So please be sure to understand yourself. The true key to time management is knowledge of self. I know it sounds generic, but you can't tell where your time is going if you don't know what you're doing with it. It starts with yourself looking inwards and it affects how you look outwards. Cool. I'm happy to take some questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Tony, for the very insightful presentation on goal setting and time management, maintaining a motivation. It's very well insightful presentation, and thank you so very much. There is a question by Tanile. I have unmuted your mic. I see your hand is raised. You may speak. You may unmute and speak. Tanile.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear her, Dr. Tony?
Yes, yes, yes. I can hear you, Tande.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
It's not much of a. It's not really a question. But it's more of me reflecting on this imposter syndrome and the entire session. I'd like to firstly thank you, Dr. Tony, for this session. It really was very helpful for me. My name is Tandile. I'm doing my master's in tourism and hospitality. I was doing my honors last year, and I won't lie, the excessive work while working was sort of like quite a lot, and I adopted some negative things that led to a little bit of anxiety, but also just the imposter syndrome, I won't lie, has been something that I have been struggling with. It's like not necessarily being confident with my work and putting it out there. And that has led to a lot of demotivation and also just me asking myself, why am I doing that? Why am I doing what I'm doing currently? And just all these negative things that can just put you in a place where you start questioning everything and not necessarily knowing how to move. So in this entire session, it really opened my mind on how I should prioritize on important things, just how to break things down. And it's something that I was not necessarily paying attention to. And I've realized that it's something that has led to things such as your anxiety and just also being bombarded with a lot of work, not prioritizing or setting time for important things and less important things. And also even with the food, sometimes you eat certain foods just for like something quick. And
Comfort.
also, yeah, you just touched on everything that I have been struggling with, especially with like not having enough time to rest. I would always feel like if I rest a lot, then I'm wasting time. But then that sort of just deteriorates my energy, and it just it results in those demotivation things. And yeah, it really has helped. And thank you so much. I will consider them. If anything, I'm just going to start doing that from now on.
Thank you for that feedback. That's so wonderful that I was actually able to impact on something real, especially because you've experienced some of these things yourself and you understand how detrimental they can get when they are allowed to spiral out on their own and unmitigated. Um, so it really is something that starts with yourself. And I think you're taking a very big step by saying that I see these things in my own behavior, my own patterns, and I already noticed how they affected me. That is a major step because once you understand how these things affect you negatively, then you are motivated to change them. Unlike someone who hasn't experienced, maybe who doesn't understand how bad it can get, you, on the other hand, haven't had an experience. So it makes it more efficient for you to take some of this and make use of it. So I'm grateful I could actually impact on something real and concrete and speak to your situation too. But I think I have to say this, not that I think, the fact that you're making the steps, attending workshops like this, consciously thinking about your own time, that is already unraveling and unpacking the problems. You are doing absolutely the best for yourself right now.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. I think I saw another hand.
Yes, there is another hand. You may unmute and speak. And you can speak there.
Good morning. Thank you, Doc, for the presentation. I learned a lot in terms of overcommitment. Yeah, at times you find yourself committing too much and biting more than you can chew. So here's a question, Doc. I'm trying to imagine a scenario where you do your research, you're looking for the journal articles that you want to read, you're gathering your literature. Then you end up having a lot on your table. You don't know where to start when it comes to reading. Is there a point where you say, I have researched enough, or you keep on digging more and more and more journal articles? Then at the end of the day, you don't have time to read and you don't know where to start and what to do. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. A very important question. When it comes to organizing, number one, and structuring the research process, the reading is usually something which is left open to the student to say, okay, just keep reading until you fully understand the concepts or you fully understand the theme and the topic. That, I think, is good for a literature review to keep reading and read as much as possible. But once you've done a literature review, which falls in your proposal, then the reading should be focused. You should only read things that speak to your research question, number one, your research question being something that you are asking and other people have answered or have attempted to answer. But number two, I would also suggest that you read things that are parallel to that research question that you want to leverage new ideas off. So, for instance, if I want to speak about, let's say, for instance, Ubuntu and witchcraft, as much as not a lot has been written on that, I can I can read my core literature on Ubuntu. So I'll read maybe maybe three authors and get the idea from three. And then I will read maybe three authors from the witchcraft stuff and get the idea. What would happen after this is that I then take these ideas and then go to my supervisor and have a discussion with them, not saying this and this person quoted, but have a discussion to see if I've understood the concept that is required to answer my question. So the research question should guide you when you are unsure whether or not you've read enough. The research question will have, number one, the core problem that you're trying to solve, and it will be then populated by the core literature that tries to solve that problem. But you must also consider when there's new ideas that you want to establish, that kind of parallel reading that goes with that. I don't know if that is helpful. It's not an easy kind of answer thing to say that read 5 and read 4, but generally you need to test your knowledge base by either writing to your supervisor or asking to meet and have an informal discussion about a certain concept that is in your research question. That way you don't read everything. You don't want to also make your research too broad. Remember I said you need to have a focus, and that focus will be found in things like your research question or your thesis statement. If you those are the things that should tell you where you need to be reading, not just the concept itself, but your research question and your thesis statement. I don't know if that was helpful, but yeah, don't read everything. I wouldn't suggest that because you can't put everything in your PhD or your master's. It's impossible. And instead, the good research projects are the ones with a very clear focus. The ones that are very general and very vague generally don't get the kind of, they don't get lauded as much as those with a very clear focus, with a very specific mandate. What are we doing here? What are we answering? What are we addressing? Then you use that question to develop your reading kind of bibliography.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tony, for clarifying on that question. I see there is another hand by Festus. You may unmute your mic and speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Shabangu and the co-facilitators and my colleagues. I think for me, it has been a helpful exercise. I have learned a lot. I personally struggle with procrastination. And so you've helped me. You have infused something new in me. The fear that I've been struggling with, I think I'll be able to overcome. But having said that, I just want to find out, you spoke about the choice of the supervisor and the co-supervisor. I have my supervisor. When do we get to know the co-supervisor? Is it in the course of the year, or the university will write a letter, or my supervisor will share with me? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the positive feedback. The co-supervision is something which is established at an early stage with your supervisor. So your supervisor will be the one to say, we need additional expertise, or I may not be available for the whole research journey and I will need someone to step in at some point. Those are generally the reasons for a co-supervisor. Outside of those reasons, people can rationalize for a co-supervisor if, for instance, they are coming from another institution and they are transitioning. That is usually one other way in which you can be assigned a co-supervisor. But what is the case is that we find that we don't have enough supervisors in the first place in many departments. And so the co-supervision is very rare. And when it does happen, it's very strictly delineated. So we'll know that that co-supervisor is brought in for the expertise on X, Y, and Z, not just as someone you have additional support from. So that will be communicated by your supervisor, if not by the postgraduate coordinator in your department. They will then tell you that you have been assigned an additional supervisor. And you can motivate for an additional supervisor too, as a student. If you can show that there's additional expertise required above and beyond what your main supervisor is offering, then that then counts as some form of motivation for an additional supervisor. However, remember that there's this is now maybe not so about what happens, but you know, the implications of the processes is that sometimes the main supervisor will get some sort of, I don't know what, from the faculty. So people will want to be the main supervisor generally and not want to be the co-supervisor. I'm just not too sure if there is some sort of thing about it, but I generally see in quite a few departments, people will not want to co-supervise when there is a main supervisor. Yeah, so generally, this is something that your supervisor will communicate with you, and your department postgraduate coordinator should be able to communicate with you too. Okay.
Thank you so much, Tony. I hope you answered the visitors and got your clarity. I see there is another hand by Njabulo. You may unmute your mic and speak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, Dr. Tony. Thank you so much for the insightful presentation. I just wanted to ask also on the issue of supervisors. In terms of communication, how does one go about it when a situation happens? You've got a main supervisor and a co-supervisor. How do you tailor around your communication in terms of approach?
Okay, good question. Excellent question, actually. So again, it really depends on how and what you need. How, when I say how, I'm meaning like, how do you want to be supervised, or the supervision style that you're looking for, and what you need for that specific moment. So for instance, if I'm someone who has a co-supervisor and I find that I have a better relationship with my co-supervisor and someone I can talk to, if I have an emergency at home, I may go to the co-supervisor first and have them communicate with the main supervisor. But if I have work that I need like feedback from, I will generally approach the main supervisor first and let them then disseminate what needs to go to the co-supervisor. So it really depends on what you are looking for, but generally you have them both available to you. The only difference is that in instances where you're submitting things such as proposals, such as any form of formal submission, you will have to include both of them in the communication, not just one. The only the one way, like I said, which is not to play them, but to use their strengths to your benefit, is to understand who can help you given the situation you find yourself in. Especially when you have a certain rapport with one versus another, then you can always negotiate the space in such a way that the co-supervisor will be more emotional, psychological support and mentorship, and the main supervisor will be research development. And you can always ask for meetings with both of them. This is what is naturally supposed to happen, that when you do have a meeting, it should essentially happen with both of them and not just one or the other. When you do meet with just one or the other, then you have to update the other and say, I met with so and so, and we discussed this matter. Can you then take it forward? The communication just must be clear. But I think the main point to take away is that understand their strengths and understand what you need at the time. There's no protocol of you have to speak to the main first and then the co. But in order to respect the setup, you would likely send your work, as in the research, to the main most of the time. Okay.
Okay, thank
Any
you so much.
final
Hopefully,
questions or comments? Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
the way just okay. And there is no any other question. I just have a question. How does one assess having a great productive day? Let's say, how do you assess saying that you've had a productive day? How do you assess productivity on a particular day as a student or as a staff or as somebody? Like, how do you say today I was productive according to you? Yeah.
I would likely refer to the Eisenhower matrix that I spoke about earlier on. The more important and urgent tasks I can do in a day, the better I will feel in the long run. And I say this because these are the things that even if you've accomplished something, they can take away your joy of accomplishing something because they still need to be done. So set out smaller tasks for your research and smaller tasks for your day, which are both important and urgent on that day. And tick them off, tick as many of them off as possible, so that the next day you have less of them and you feel more accomplished at the end of that day too. The point of it is to feel consistently good about your days, not just have one good day and then return back into a state of mismanagement of time. It's to have a consistently good outlook on your days. And that can only happen if you get the stresses out the way first. The main stresses, the main aspects of research that are needed. Nonetheless, you can't complete your research in one day. That's why I say look at specific tasks that are doable, achievable, that contribute towards that quadrant A or quadrant 1 in the Eisenhower. So if you're a staff member, for instance, there's always going to be an overarching task that is sitting in the back of your mind. And you should at least contribute towards that in your day. Even if you don't complete it, you need to at least have a significant contribution that speaks to a deadline, for you to feel less stressed the next day. Otherwise, the stress keeps on piling up, even though you're ticking off things on your to-do list. I hope that is helpful, Lawrence.
That is very helpful. Thank you so much for that, for the invaluable, insightful response on that question. Really, really, really appreciate it. There are comments in the chat
The
section.
chat.
So yeah, so Ramushu says thanks for this awesome session. Comment, being a full-time mom and studying is also hard, but I will try to rework my routine, and I have tried most of the things that you have mentioned, except for monitoring, recording things that I do. There is also
I'll just respond
okay.
to them and I can just read them also quickly because I'm looking at the time. So,
Okay.
but Seba, I think there is a big issue of you being a mother there, which is not an easily fixable thing. You can't just apply a time management technique to something like that. It requires your full attention, your full awareness. You need to be accessible all the time also to your children, of course, you know. The issue is just that when you get to monitor and record the things that you do, what you will find is you will find gaps which you may have not been aware of. And it's how you use those gaps which will make a difference in some of this, in the situation that you find yourself. So I suggest you do try monitoring your time. You do try looking at, am I spending a lot more time maybe doing things in the evening because I'm tired? Should I maybe try negotiate waking up earlier in contrast to sleeping later? How can I make use of these gaps that are available to me to supplement my time use? Even if it won't completely overhaul the situation I'm in, it will supplement my time usage and have me stressing slightly less than I am every day. But yeah, I can't even begin to say I know of a quick fix for that situation. There isn't one. It's just consistently working on understanding how your time is being used. I see. Thank you for the motivation. Time used wisely. Thank you. Discipline. I see. I have to attest with Dr. Shabangu's points on having focus when doing literature review. I really struggled with this on my first year doing masters and wasted the entire year juggling everything out there in the literature review. My literature ended up not being clear and I myself would get confused. So yes, what is needed is a parallel reading. Okay, my question is on finding what motivates you. Well, I do know what does motivate me, but I'm not able to access it. So now, as part of what stresses me is what motivates me. I'm particularly motivated being around people, and I work better at dawn around the AMs, and there's no one to entertain me that time, so I end up not being productive. So Nibonile, the easy fix is just that you won't find motivation while doing the work. You want to use the motivation to charge your battery. And you do then the work with the charged battery. You can't charge and use the battery at the same time. So if you are someone that works in the AM, you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't have the people there while you do the work. So you will have to use the already charged battery to get the work done. I'm going to give some unsolicited advice, but it may be useful to some people. I heard this in one of the conferences I went to, is that, someone who's motivated by alcohol, for instance, is told to not stop drinking, but write drunk and edit sober. Can you see how you compartmentalize those things? You're not writing and submitting the drunk work, but you're separating it and still having time to use that motivation to get a good piece of writing out. So too with your motivation. Let the motivation charge you, but use what you've learned, moments, those pieces of, wow, it was fun hanging out with my friends. Get home and just maybe record yourself saying something about the research. You don't have to write it in that session, but yeah. So the other questions about the certificate, motivation. Okay. Thank you so much. I think I've covered as much ground as possible.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Tony, and thank you for everybody's comments. And regarding all the comments, as I mentioned in the beginning, that there is an evaluation form that I've posted in the chat session. I would ask you or request you, everybody, to please fill in that request form, and you can also fill in that request form and put all those comments on behalf of Dr. Tony there. He will gladly appreciate all your comments. And with regarding to the certificate, all certificates will be sent to participants once all the reporting of the workshops is done. And please also note that to receive the workshop certificate, you also requested to fill in the evaluation form that I have sent it in the chat section. So without any further ado, I'd just like to take this moment again to express our gratitude to Dr. Tony Shabangu for this very insightful workshop, and to all the participants for joining in and being a very engaging audience. We really appreciate all of you here at the Research Capacity Development Unit, and thank you for honoring my invite again, Dr. Tony, and to all the participants. And without any further ado, I don't know if you want to say something or you want to comment further, Dr. Tony, before
No,
we
I just want to say
close the
thank you to
session.
everyone. Thank you very much. We started at 10:05 and we are ending at 11:35, which is perfect for me. We've spent exactly the allocated time, and I thank you all for appreciating the work and respecting the time. All the best with the rest of your academic year.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Tony, again, and enjoy the rest of your day further. Yeah, I've posted again the feedback survey. Just please allow everybody to just fill it in. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye.